You are in the right place. Welcome. I'm so excited that you are here. Get ready to transform the way that you think about your brand and the way that you approach and feel about attracting your ideal clients. So, we're going to talk about getting fluent in the emotional language of your ideal clients. Before we get into anything, I want you to do something for me. Take a look at this picture on the left and write down or think in your head of 3 sentences that describe it. While you're doing that, I'm going to tell you a little story. So, my family has recently moved to Naples, Italy. It's nicknamed the city is nicknamed the beautiful woman with the dirty feet, which is the perfect description of it because it's chaotic and wonderful and amazing, and I love it. So when we first got here, I think we were maybe 2 months in, struggling to learn the language, and we had just survived one of the uber late Italian dinners. Seriously, we showed up at the restaurant at 9:30 p.m., with our 2 toddlers in tow, and we were the first people in the entire restaurant. So by a pure miracle, we survived without any toddler meltdowns. And we wanted to reward my 4-year-old son for being good at the restaurant. So on our way home, we stopped into a gelato shop. So we have the context of the gelato shop. We can see all of the different flavors in the glass case, and my son points at the white one. So with terrible Italian, I tell the guy behind the counter that I want il bianco, questo, this one, the white one. He kind of pushes back a little bit and has a little bit of a confused look on his face, but I insist in my broken Italian that was the one that I wanted. So he scooped it up for us and we were on our way. Now we have about a half-mile walk to get back to our house. So we walk up the stairs, through the alleys, down the road, back to our house, and our son is happily eating his gelato, his frozen treat, on the way back. And when we finally get back to our house, which is, a good 15-20 minutes later, when you're walking with a toddler, you understand, we ask him for a bite of his gelato. And it wasn't until I took a bite that I realized that he wasn't eating ice cream at all. He was actually eating unsweetened, frozen, half and half. So we asked for gelato, and we actually got panna, which is cream. And not only cream, it's not like this sweetened, amazing American cream. It's just butter or milk or whatever they make this stuff out of. So even though we had the visual context of being in a gelato shop, and we had some broken language and the visuals of knowing that we wanted the white frozen thing, because we weren't speaking the same language and we weren't fluent in each other's languages, we ended up missing the point completely. We ended up with this treat that thankfully my son loved anyway, but it wasn't even sweet. It was just frozen milk. So your brand works in a similar way. So even though you might be giving your ideal clients and customers some visuals, like visual references, you might have your colors or your logo picked out, and you might even be giving them the context of what you actually do for them. So if you're a copywriter or a coach or whatever your industry happens to be, you can still miss out on some really huge opportunities and really miss each other's meaning if you aren't speaking the emotional language that your ideal clients and customers are fluent in. Because when we make decisions as humans, it's always from our gut. It's always from our heart. It's always emotional. This is backed by science. And if your brand isn't fluent in that same language, there's a huge opportunity for you. So get excited. So you are in the perfect place if you want these things. You want to stand out against other options in the market with a very strong brand identity and message, and be very certain about what that is. You want to be more you without all the fluff and filler. I have an embarrassing story coming up about that. stay tuned. You also want to make business decisions faster with more confidence. We are assaulted with way too much information and way too many choices every day. So if you don't have tools to sift through those choices, it can get really overwhelming really, really fast. And my favorite thing, if you want to attract amazing clients who are happy to pay what you deserve, what you're worth, what you should be paid for the time and talent and work that you do, then building your brand and becoming fluent in this emotional language that your clients are speaking is one of the best ways. Actually, let's scratch that. It's the best way to do that. And I believe that wholeheartedly, and I will explain why. Here's some symptoms. It's time to look at your brand if you feel like there's certain tasks that you just can't keep off of the back burner. So if you've had write a blog post on your to-do list for the last 17 days and you still haven't written a blog post, or replace blog post with whatever that task is, there's probably something wrong at the foundation of your brand that's stopping you from being visible. If you never feel ready to take the next step, or to get to the next level in your brand, or to get more visible, to take that interview, pitch yourself for a guest post, these types of things, if you aren't excited about doing that, it's probably time to take a look at your brand. If you aren't sure how to stand out against your competitors, if you feel like the industry that you're in is extremely noisy and that you're getting lost in all of the shuffle, if you feel like your brand lacks focus or soul, and if you were Stella, you'd still be missing your groove. Or in other words, you second guess yourself a lot. I have been there. Boy, have I been there. But thankfully, you are here now. I'm excited to share with you all of the stuff I'm about to share. But before we do that, let me ask you a question. Do you want to attract more clients? If the answer to this question is yes, here is my promise for you. By watching this workshop, which by the way is brand new and has never been seen before, and I'm extremely excited to share with you because it's the culmination of about 3 years and 17,000 hours of work. So welcome. If you're ready to attract more clients, changing the way that you think about your brand in a fundamental way, which is what we're going to do today, that is the domino decision. When you tick over that little domino, it affects everything else. When your brand is on point, or as the kids are saying these days, if your brand is on fleek, I have no idea if I use that correctly, everything else gets better. So your Facebook ads work better. Your content marketing works better. You feel more certain in pitching yourself for opportunities that you know you deserve. All of this gets easier when your brand is solid. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to discover your brand personality using your brand archetype. We're going to give your brand focus. I am a huge fan of doing less. I think that I have one of the longest to-do lists in the world, but I'm guessing yours is right up there with me. And if we can take things off of our to-do list, it gives us focus to do the things that really affect our impact and our income, which I like. We're going to talk about building your on-brand empire. So all of the different touch points and all of the different ways that we can make our ideal clients and customers fall in love with us. And also, we're going to talk about attracting amazing clients, those clients that you cannot wait to work for, or customers if you're a product-based business, the ones that truly value what you do, that appreciate your talent and would even happily pay you more than you ask them to pay you. And as a side note, this workshop is only available for 3 days. So kudos to you for being here and being an action taker. And I'm recording it for you because I am over here, like I said, in Italy. And while the pasta is amazing and the views are gorgeous, the internet is really bad. So if I was doing this live, you wouldn't be able to see the text on the slides. Plus, I'm a mom of two. I understand how busy your life is. So I wanted to make this available to you 24/7 for these 3 days so that you can watch it on your own time. As you're watching, it will behoove you, and I'll explain why in just a second here, to take notes. So pay attention to the things that really hit you in your gut. So what are your biggest takeaways, your biggest aha moments, or your biggest epiphany that comes from this training? If you share it, I have a gift for you. There are share buttons above this video, so you can click one of those. It's really easy to share. Make sure that you tag me in your post, and then also send me an email. And when you do, I have a very special gift for you. I forgot to put the value on this slide, but it's a $97 value. It's the Irresistible Introduction Formula. So if you are ever introducing yourself in a Facebook group, and you want to have a bajillion likes and comments on your introduction and have people interested to learn more in what you do and what you're all about, then you're going to love this gift. So share it, tag me, send me an email, and I will hook you up with this free gift right away. It's really, really good, if I say so myself. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about myself. I'm going to use my stories as teaching moments instead of having this long, drawn-out presentation about how amazing I am. So I just trust that you know that you're in the right place, that I'm coming from a place of experience and lots and lots and lots of experience and proven results. So get excited to learn about building your brand. The reason I like building brands so much is I think that it's the ultimate self-fulfilling prophecy. So when you decide is a key word here. So when you decide the impact that you want to have in the world, your brand can get you there. So it's like your, DeLorean that brings you to the future. It's the thing that is going to bridge you from where you are now to where you want to be. But before we get there, I promised you a really embarrassing story. All right, I'm cringing, really cringing. So when I got started in online marketing, I did what many online entrepreneurs do, and I bought a course. And this course was by a very reputable teacher who I actually still really, really enjoy. And the course taught you about starting a blog. And I'm afraid to even put this on the screen, but this was my first blog back in, I guess it was 2013 now, so about 4 years ago, and it's just really painful. It's objectively nice, right? So I had a email opt-in, I had my photo on my site because I heard that that was a good way to build relationships with people. I chose a niche, a really specific niche that I had experience in, that I had a voice in, that I was, that I already had relationships in because I was part of that community. And again, for many, many reasons, this website is a painful memory. Partly because of the design, partly because it does not represent me well at all and who I am at my core. And then, also it wasn't a financial success at all. It was created to be a money generating venture. And I think I made about $250 the entire 6 months that I had the website up. So it wasn't super, super successful. We'll just say that. And then I had this epiphany moment. I discovered this GeoCities, it was a terrible website design, that had the 12 brand archetypes on it. And as soon as I read these archetypes, I started reading what each of the motivations are and what type of impact they want to have in the world. And before I read it, I had been doing research up the wazoo. I had been following every big name entrepreneur in the space, trying to figure out what in the world they were doing that they had, 10,000 people on their email list or 20,000 people on their email list, and they were making tens of thousands of dollars every single month. And I didn't understand it. I didn't know why, when I was doing, objectively the right things. I had a website again. I was building my email list. I was doing the things that I was quote unquote supposed to do, and I wasn't getting any traction. So when I discovered the archetypes, I felt like a light bulb turned on in my life. I finally understood why some brands attract people who are extremely loyal and excited to buy from them, and why others don't. Why some brands speak to something that's like deep inside of us, that almost on an unconscious level, we want to work with them because we understand what they stand for, and they seem so clear and convicted in their message. And I knew that the brand archetypes would give me the confidence, the certainty, and the connection that I wanted to work with the people who I would soon discover were my ideal clients. But unfortunately, like every story, this wasn't there wasn't a happy end right away. We still had a few missteps to get there. And then these were the two websites. The one on the right wasn't actually a website. It was just a brand board. But it was represented on my site for a short time. These were the two websites that I made after I discovered what brand archetypes were. And these are equally as painful as the previous one. So if you may not be able to read some of the text on the page, but on the left, the little speech bubble that's above me says, "Hey, good lookin', I'm so glad you're here." Which I was doing what I thought I should do. So I knew that I needed to add personality into my brand and into my website. I just didn't know what part of my personality I should add into my site and into my brand. So I was adding things that were true to my personality, but they were only small pieces of my personality. And I was emulating other people in the market who had these overly affectionate, very feminine language. So like you can see my email opt-in says, "Be a business bombshell," which is, it's silly to me now because it wasn't right for me. I mean, it works for other people and it's true for other people, but for me, for my brand, it just wasn't a good choice. So I obviously was still floundering here, and you may feel the same way. You may feel that you have something up that's like ticking all of the check boxes. You're doing all the things that you should be doing, but it still doesn't feel like it's in alignment with you at your very core. So this was before I created my brand archetype quiz. I knew that archetypes were important. I knew that having personality was important, that trying to create that emotional connection. I was just following it in all of the wrong directions because I still wasn't being true to who I am at my very core. So I actually created the brand quiz as a tool for me. I needed the tool. I needed to know what archetype I showed up as predominantly. And now, as you can see by my current website, it's like a breath of fresh air. Like I feel like it finally is representing who I am on the inside, which is what you want, because you want to attract people who are attracted to who you are at the core of your being. And we're going to talk about how to do that in this training. Now, you're in good company if you're using brand archetypes as a tool to build your brand. You might not know these companies, but the likes of Coca-Cola, Apple, Disney, Nike, Amazon, and Google use brand archetypes along with the advertising and branding agencies that they pay millions of dollars to tell their brand stories. So this is a tool that the biggest brands in the world use, and you have the ability to use it to build your brand and your business to attract your ideal clients. How exciting is that? I felt like I was entering some like secret society when I figured out what the archetypes were and how I could use them to build my own brand. And I'm excited to share, to pass the torch on to you. You might be asking yourself, who made you the queen of archetypes? Let me tell you. First of all, I did not invent archetypes. I was not the first person to apply them to brands. I will not be the last person to apply them to brands. It actually comes from like way back with the philosopher Plato, who started exploring the idea of like forms that show up over and over again. And his work around this subject was called the theory of forms. In more recent history, Carl Jung was the father of a lot of psychological concepts that are prevalent in our culture today. And he was really the father of archetypes as we know them. Joseph Campbell in more modern times, and then now Margaret Mark and Carol S. Pierce have written about archetypes, and they are the ones who named the 12 that I use in my own work. So it's not me. These are psychological concepts that have been around for a really, really, really long time. I've just been obsessed with them for the last 3 years, and I've been studying them incessantly and using them with great results with my clients, of which I've had over 100 different brands that I've worked with in different capacities here in the last few years. And amazingly, this is crazy pants, over 40,000 people have taken my brand quiz. It's like, it blows my mind. I've even seen it used by college professors, by marketing agencies, by big companies. Recently, when I was doing research for this presentation, I stumbled on some random business conference that had my promo graphic for my quiz up presented in 20 feet by 30 feet. And I had no idea that even happened. It's been really amazing. It has taken on a life of its own. When I published it 3 years ago, I got to experience my first fangirl and hater moments. So some really big name entrepreneurs like Lewis Howes, Ash Amberjay, Tara Gentili, they all shared the quiz, which had me like major fangirling because I was feeling really small at that point. And I actually got my first hater when I first published the brand quiz. So she was very critical of my thoughts on archetypes. And at that moment, I swear to you, I almost took it down. I almost took the quiz down, like apologized to everybody and went and hid in a corner. And I'm so thankful that I didn't, because it's had such an amazing impact on all of the people that have taken it and then on my clients. And I mean, like I said, it's really taken on a life of its own. So the reason that archetypes are so powerful is because they appeal to people's hearts and their unconscious desires. They help you stand out from a sea of competitors with confidence. They help you make decisions faster and easier, and you feel confident and certain. My 2C keywords that I like to say a lot, because those are the things that help us build brands that really have a major impact. So you feel confident to put yourself out there. Essentially, we want more humanity, not more solutions. We want people, as humans, we want to do business with other humans. We want brands to treat us like we're human and like we're an individual and give us things that we care about to talk about. So that's the main benefit of using archetypes as a tool to build your brand. They are like the emotional cliff notes to your ideal client's heart, because they're attached to the things as humans that we value and we're attracted to on the most basic level. So the things like feeling like we're understood, like we're part of a bigger community, that we are significant and have a level of impact in other people's lives. These are the examples of the things that each of the 12 archetypes are attached to. And all humans want these things to a certain degree or another. So instead of just talking about your product or service, whatever widget that you sell, you're building your brand and you're aligning it with things that actually matter to humans. And because we make decisions emotionally, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a second, it helps people. It gravitates people towards you. It pulls them in like a magnet, because they know on a deep soul level that they want to be understood, or they want to improve their relationships, or they want more knowledge. And if you're offering those things to them through your product or service, it makes it easy for them to say yes. Your archetype also allows you to be more you. I can't even count the number of times that people who have taken my quiz have said, thank you for giving me permission to be me. Like, I've always been this thing. I've just been avoiding it and trying to ignore it and push it down for the longest time. But now that I am embracing it, magic is happening in my business. Like, I have gotten more opportunities in the last, month or 2 months or whatever the time frame may be, because they're being true to who they are at their very core. I've seen that in my own business. Like I said, I went from making about $250 in 6 months to making a whole lot more than that these days. So again, incredibly blessed, incredibly thankful to be living here in Italy for a few years. And we visited Florence a couple months ago, and I was on the hunt for a genuine leather Florence belt. And it so happened the day that I was searching for this belt, I was actually wearing pants that were too big. So I really needed the belt. On a functional level, I needed a belt. And I really wanted to buy one from Florence because they're known for their leather goods. So we stumbled on this open air market. And at first, I'm like, jackpot. There are purses and belts and wallets everywhere. But as I start to look closer, I realize that all of the leather goods look exactly the same. I mean, they're clearly not handmade, right? They look exactly the same. And although they smell like leather, they look like leather, they're stamped with a made in Italy and tagged as such. It just doesn't feel right. It feels really inauthentic. And worse yet, all of the kiosk guys were clearly not Italian, for one, and extremely pushy. So as I walked from stall to stall, the previous stall owner would chase me down, promising to lower their prices or to give me an amazing deal that I couldn't pass up. I can't even tell you how fast we ran out of there because it just felt so wrong. We did some Googling and we found some recommendations online for a small, tiny little shop that we had to seek out down an alleyway. And when we walked in, there were women standing up at a table, all hand making leather goods. So these beautiful purses and belts. And the owner came right up to me and greeted me, and she was about my age and clearly passionate about the work that she did there. It was amazing how different those two experiences were. And the second experience was one that I wanted to buy into. So I bought myself a belt, and interestingly, I bought myself a €100 belt, which is kind of crazy because a belt is a belt is a belt. A belt is going to keep your pants from falling down your butt. And I could have bought seemingly genuine leather Italian belt for about €8 at that previous market. But what this story tells you and what it shows you, and it's an example of, is that as humans, we make decisions emotionally. We, especially with products or services that we're buying that are particularly expensive, or if they are something that we don't necessarily need to survive, the more it leans in that direction, the more emotional the decision makes. Even things that we need to survive. So if we need shelter, when we're buying a house, that's a 100% emotional decision. If a house doesn't feel right, or if a neighborhood doesn't feel right in our heart or our gut, we don't buy it. And that's probably one of the biggest purchases we'll ever make. We like to think that we're logical beings, but we really, really aren't. Our decision-making process is driven by our hearts and our guts and our groins, everything that is most basic to our human experience. So the key lesson here, that as a brand, we need to think about branding differently. It's not just design. We have to think about the psychological and emotional cues that we're giving our clients. And thankfully, the Archetype tool is a really beneficial or very effective way of doing that. So let me ask you a question. What is your spirit animal? Do you identify with one of these animals here shown on the screen? I'm kidding. I actually hate those exercises. It might tell you a little something about perhaps the visuals of your brand, but it doesn't provide a lot of depth, right? So it's not very useful as a branding exercise. Something that I find much, much more effective is to think about your brand as a character. So let me ask you, who is your spirit Leo? Leonardo DiCaprio is my favorite actor, and he's been in a ton of amazing movies, playing a huge variety of characters, which makes him really interesting as an actor. And you can actually look at each of these movies and watch them. And yes, I'm giving you full permission to binge on Netflix in the name of improving your brand. And you can use his characters in these movies as inspiration for your brand in the way that you speak, in the stories that you tell about the challenges that you run up against, the stories that you tell about your motivations as a brand are going to align with these characters in the stories. You can even pull visual cues from the way that he dresses in that particular character, or the way that the movie aesthetic is. You get a lot of rich depth and inspiration when you start to think about your brand in this deeper psychological way, almost as if your brand is a person. And what else is really amazing about archetypes is that you can sell essentially the same product as your competitors. You can even sell essentially the same product for a more expensive price than your competitors. But by using your archetype, you can differentiate yourself from like substitute products or services that are objectively pretty much the same thing. So Tracksmith, which is perhaps a lesser known athletic clothing brand, and Nike, which also sells athletic clothing, they sell the same thing, but they're hitting on very different emotional cues. So you can start to see how the archetype comes through these brands in different ways. So although these are all fitness related brands, whether they're gyms or fitness equipment or fitness clothing, they hit on very different emotional cues and they give us a very different experience. And as a consumer, we are pulled towards one of these brands or the other, depending on what our self-perception is or what we value as people. And again, these are the deep emotional the bonds that by using your archetype in your brand, you get to leverage. I also love using archetypes because they give you focus. And let me give you an example of how you can use this to provide focus and to do less in your brand. These 4 photos of me are all nice photos, but they all communicate something very, very different. So how do you decide how you're going to show up in your brand? As humans, we're incredibly complex creatures. Like I said, I'm a mom of 2, so I have some caregiver in me. I am a total nerd, so I have a lot of sage in me. I love to have fun with my friends, which could be seen as either the entertainer, focusing on enjoying the moment, or the girl next door, focused on those peer relationships. The photo on the left is kind of this boho, perhaps like innocent archetype feeling. So all of these photos could communicate something that is true about me. So the advice to just be yourself is incomplete. You have to figure out how you're going to be your strongest self, and you're going to be the part of you that people resonate with because it's so inherent to who you are at your core that they can't help but love you for the way that you are. I also love building a brand based on my archetype because it squishes, it diminishes the urge to rebrand every 3 to 6 months. And the way that it does this is because archetypes are timeless. Since I've been giving you lots of examples of the different archetypes, with everything from your spirit animal to your favorite Leonardo DiCaprio movie, you can start to see archetypes everywhere. As you're walking through the store, you'll start to see these different archetype messages. As you're encountering your favorite websites or your favorite brands, you'll start to see these different emotional messages. Even as you're watching your favorite TV show, these characters are patterns that show up over and over and over and over and over throughout time. And again, they're in alignment with what we desire as humans at our very core. They're attached to ideas that just don't go away. When you're learning about something like how to leverage Instagram stories for your business, or how to attract, traffic on Pinterest, those things are inherently, they're not going to be around forever. The social media platform that you're on is going to change, and it's going to evolve, and it's going to get replaced by somebody. I mean, if you invested in a course in how to build your business on MySpace, which, I'm not sure if many of you have, but if you did, you would understand what I'm talking about. The wonderful thing about archetypes is that they give you a permanence, they give you a consistency that shows up. Of course, you're going to evolve your brand over time. You're going to get better at telling your brand story. You're going to upgrade your graphics as you can afford more, and you're attracting more clients to you. But you don't ever have to change who you are at the very core, which I am a huge fan of. Like I said, I like to have permission to do less because I'm tired of doing more social media platforms, more types of promotions, more campaigns, more tactics. So when I am feeling that way, I just come back to my center, come back to my brand archetype, and I check all of my decisions against it. And it helps me make thoughtful decisions that make sense for my brand. All right, now that I have imparted my knowledge on why archetypes are so gosh darn powerful and how to start seeing them in everyday life so that it can influence your brand, let's talk about some of the common questions that I've received. Number one, the most popular question that I've heard is always about the combination of archetypes. Like, how many can I have? Can I change my archetype? Can I be all 12 archetypes depending on who I'm talking to, etc.? So here is my answer for that. The archetypes are your tool. They are your filter. They're not necessarily something that is going to be client facing. You're not going to have a advertising campaign that proclaims that you are the sage archetype, so come and do business with me. It's your tool to create emotional messages that people are going to resonate with. And for it to be an effective tool, it has to be a filter. You can't be all things to all people because it diminishes the clarity and the confidence that you get by being the strongest parts of yourself. So I always recommend to choose 2 archetypes, a primary and a secondary. And you can mix the 2 together to get a very unique blend for your own business. But I do recommend resisting the urge to have more than that. You could perhaps, if you are incredible and you have a capacity to hold lots of ideas and communicate them all clearly at the same time, you could have 3, but definitely not any more than that. So the best recommendation for making the most of using this powerful tool is to have 1 primary, 1 secondary. And the fun thing is, so I have the quiz, it can help point you in the right direction, but ultimately it's your choice. Ultimately, you get to decide how you want to show up in the world and what feels most in alignment for you. The quiz is fantastic, and it is really scarily accurate for how basic that it is, because there are only 7 questions, but they get at the heart and the core of who you are as a business owner and as a brand at your foundation, at the base of the pyramid. So it is extremely accurate, but you get the final say, and it can be fun. Perhaps if you always score a certain way on the quiz as your primary, you can always mix in your other favorite archetype to help tell your personality and your brand story in a more detailed and way that feels more in alignment with you, with your own idea of how you want to show up in the world. All right, so the next question is, okay, now what? So I have my primary archetype, I have my secondary archetype. What do I do with them? And this is the meat of it. So places where it matters most to be on brand are the places where the most people are going to come into contact with your brand. And it's also the places where people encounter your brand first. So we'll talk about the client-facing cues here in the next slide. But first, what you have to decide based on your archetype is what themes or metaphors are going to show up in your brand. How are you going to craft a client experience that is unique and that speaks to who you are and what you believe at your core? Who are your brand villains and pitfalls? How are you going to define your personality, and what are your core brand values, and how do those come to life in your business? Next, you're going to translate that strategy into those client-facing cues, those triggers, so you're speaking that emotional language. So what are the colors that communicate your archetype? What are the fonts and the images that have that emotional resonance that you want? How is your brand voice going to sound? You also want to think about the actual words and phrases. What is the unique brand language that your brand is going to use? And what stories are you going to tell? We humans are so turned on to stories on an emotional level that by telling a story whenever you're talking with another human being, whether it's in a presentation, it's in a podcast interview, or on a blog post, or in your email, something super simple, by telling a story, you bring people to an emotional place where they form a bond with you instead of just thinking in their rational brain about whether they like you or not. Also in your bios, lots of people see those on your different social media platforms. The names are really key and a great place to tell your brand story. So think about the name of your email list, of your product names, your service names. All of those are really, really important and you shouldn't leave them as neutral. They should help tell that brand story and be an emotional cue in your brand. And then, of course, your content. So if you blog, podcast, interviews, email, all of those places where you're telling stories and communicating with your ideal client, you want to incorporate your archetype into those decisions. So I'm going to ask you to do a bit of self-study here. And I want you to ask yourself, how clear is your brand? How confident are you in what you stand for and how you communicate it, and its ability to attract your ideal clients to you? Think about each of the different areas where your brand shows up, from the design to your content to your overall message that you're communicating with people, the images, photography, typography. How effective is your brand at helping you get to that future that you want? Is it in alignment with where you want to go and who you want to be in the market? And as you're doing this self-study, this is a perfect time to hit that share button on the top of the video. Remember that when you share a public post about this training, not only will your entrepreneur friends love you for it, but you also get the irresistible introduction script. Look at me almost forgetting the name of my own gift. But yes, do share that. Tag me, send me an email, let me know that you did it with a link to your post, and I will happily and gladly send over that free bonus for you. Okay, so now that we've done this self-study and we've taken an honest look at where we are and then where we want to go, I have a resource for you. This has never been seen before. I am so excited to announce my brand new product. And product, it diminishes the amount of heart and research and time and money that's gone into it. But Brandfluency is my new business baby. And yes, I do call my courses my babies because it feels like labor to get these out in the world, if I'm being honest, because I've distilled everything that I've learned about archetypes in the last 3 years into a very easy to digest, highly detailed, custom course for each of the 12 archetypes. So there are 12 different courses that I'm offering to you today that are going to be an amazing resource for doing all of the things, implementing all of the things that we talked about. So we've established why and how your brand archetype can help attract your ideal clients to you, to help you increase your leads, increase your sales, perhaps most importantly, feel more confident and certain about what you stand for and how you're communicating your brand. And so many courses out there, I mean, even courses that are $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000, they're all made for everybody. So they expect you to fall into just one single box. They expect you to implement their advice without even considering who you are at your core. Like, it's not custom to your brand. And I was deeply concerned with this. With my own experience taking courses, I've invested a lot of money in courses, and some of them have been super, super valuable. But I've always felt like something was missing, that it wasn't quite right for me. And based on all of my research and experience working with one-on-one clients through this process, I knew that this product had to be born. And it was not easy, but I am so excited to say that it is finally here. So choose your archetype. You can invest in your primary archetype. You can choose to add your secondary archetype. But the key thing to know here is that there's no fluff, no filler. All of the content in the course is completely custom to your archetype. So ask yourself, what could your brand do for you? What would your business look like, and what would your life look like if you had more clients than you could work with, knocking on the door, wanting to work with you? What would your business and life look like if you had less problem clients? So clients who didn't appreciate your talent and your value, and honestly, I mean, who you are as a person, because our businesses tend to be extensions of who we are as people. So when people don't appreciate us as business people, it can feel really hard. So imagine having less of those clients ever coming to your business because they already know what you're about and who you are. Also, imagine what it feels like to attract clients to you, so you wake up to leads in your inbox instead of always having to chase down or spend countless hours in Facebook groups in the name of networking, so that you are getting clients that way. And imagine even attracting just one new client a month, what that would do for your bottom line, for your impact, and for your income. And imagine attracting more than that. What would your business look like? Here's what people say about the training that I've given in the past. Treva's amazing. She's a web designer. She said, I realized that I'm a sage. It was so enlightening for me because it gave me the proof I needed to embrace who I am and own it instead of shying away. And I love that she said that it gave her the proof to be who she is, because that is a very sage thing to say. Dear friend and peer Diana Valentine, who is the founder of the amazing Super Conditions, said, I love the way Kay makes hairy, complicated ideas into simple action steps. She's calm and makes transparent what is usually very murky or magical process. Michelle spoke about her archetype. She said, I wanted to tell you that you really helped me to have a breakthrough. I was stuck with my company being a different archetype than my personal brand, and something just wasn't fitting. You saw that in all of 10 seconds, and your observation changed everything. I could not be here without your help. I am so excited. I am excited for all of these people. So the exciting thing about Brandfluency, not only is it 12 different courses, but it's available right now. You can put this to work in your business right now. And you can also do it on your schedule. So again, being a mom of two, I know how crazy this entrepreneur lifestyle is. So it's available to you 24/7. You'll have lifetime access. As I add more examples and more content to it, you'll get access to that. But let me tell you, this baby is chock full of amazing ideas, again, that is specific to your archetype, that is so powerful, because you don't want to just take inspiration from any brand or learn about any brand and then try to incorporate it into your business, or take advice from any like expert or guru, because what worked in their business very well might not work in yours, because if they're a different archetype than you, the effectiveness of their techniques are going to be completely different than when you implement them in your business. And bottom line is, your clients, your ideal clients and customers who you want to attract to your business are going to be more emotionally engaged in your brand and in your business. And the amazing thing about that is that business gets easier. Like, there's less decisions to make. Things just happen easier. Like I said, it's that domino decision that when you are clear in your brand and you're willing to be visible in your brand because you're confident about what you stand for, everything else falls into line. I've seen it for myself. I've seen it for my clients. And it's really an amazing feeling to stop having everything be so hard. All right, so here is everything you're going to learn if you invest in your Archetype Brandfluency course. You're going to learn why we love you. So what is so special and unique and amazing and magical about your archetype? How you make people feel. So really learning that emotional language that people respond to specific to your archetype. This is, let me just pause for a cause here. So the subtypes beneath each archetype are something that I've been holding close to my heart and close to my chest, to give a poker metaphor here. So this is the first time that I'm sharing my understanding of the subtypes underneath each archetype, because it's really helpful to know what archetype that you are. It's way more powerful to have a very specific understanding of how that shows up in the world and what role you play in people's lives as the subtype underneath the archetype. So there's 3, and I think one of the archetypes has 4 subtypes, but it's really, really powerful. And like I said, I've been using it with my one-on-one clients as my own understanding, but I haven't shared it publicly anywhere. So you get access to that. You learn about the worldview that your specific archetype has. So these are the things that are at the core of the emotional foundation of your brand. So things like your values, your beliefs, and your brand personality. In other words, how the world sees you. We're going to talk about your brand's arch nemesis, one of my favorite sections. So as much as we want to learn about what your brand is, we also want to define what your brand isn't, to make sure that you're staying on brand in a consistent way. I give you tons and tons and tons of examples from big brands who, like I mentioned in the beginning of this training, spend millions of dollars to communicate their brand story, to make the billions of dollars of sales that their companies bring in profit every year. So it pays to pay attention to what they're doing. And like I said as well, we don't want to take inspiration from just any big brand. Just the fact that they're big doesn't make it a good example for us. We want to take inspiration from the brands that are in alignment with us at this core level. I'm also going to give you examples of people, fictional and non-fictional, that fit your archetype, that are great to draw inspiration from. And then we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. We're actually going to talk about specific words. I have full pages of swipe files of words, phrases, titles, like product naming, a bunch of ideas that you can start with and build off of and remix and reconfigure to fit your brand and communicate your archetype in a really custom and compelling way. We talk about stories and content. So we already established why stories are so important in your brand, that they turn people on emotionally, that they engage with you, they want to buy from you, they want to root for you, they feel like they have a relationship with you as a brand and as a person. So I'm going to give you story prompts that are specific to your archetype, Because similar to the inspiration, we don't want to just tell any old story. We want to tell one that's specific and helps facilitate that understanding of your brand. I show you examples of design styles that are on brand on Archetype for you. Images, themes, and metaphors. I'm going to leave the mystery in that one. It's like one of the most powerful tools that I use with brands and I've seen other brands use, but it's hard to explain here in a small soundbite. So if you invest in the course, then you'll get access to that as well. And then lastly, the actual strategic decision. So things that go way beyond the surface level of just colors and fonts down to the very basic decisions that you're making about your brand experience on a strategic level that helps communicate your archetype and influence those emotions and feelings in people. So here's a peek behind the scenes. This is just the first 2 sections out of, 4 or 5 different sections, but you can see the setup of the course is super professional. It's super easy to use. The videos are all broken down into like 5 to 10 minute videos, so super easy to refer back to, which is really nice. But then you can also just binge watch all the way through because you have access to the whole course all at once when you invest. It's about an hour and a half of video content for teaching, and then there's also a 19-page workbook that guides you through the process of adapting all of the lessons to your own brand. Now, of course, it's going to take you much longer than an hour and a half to implement it, but I make it as easy as possible. I do a ton of the work for you. I don't make you guess. I give you lots of starting places that you can adapt from. And I have 2 bonuses that I'm excited about. I'm gifting you, if you invest in the course this week, the About page formula. So it builds on, it's like an addition to all of the content in the course, and it walks you through the exact recipe, the exact formula that I use to write about pages for my one-on-one clients, and that costs thousands of dollars to hire a copywriter to do, but I'm giving you that formula for $197, or it's a $197 value, and it'll be included in the course. And then also because it is so important to get out of our own way, to build our brands in a way that serves others without getting hung up on our own stuff, I'm including the Create Your Unbreakable Mindset bonus. So it's 5 different exercises, actually 6, create, because it's the acronym CREATE. There's an exercise for CREATE, ways that you can feel confident about expressing your brand. And that's a $297 value. It's actually not just a workbook, it's also a video training. So here's everything you get. You get the Brandfluency course, which is a $497 value. You get the guidebook that walks you through everything and helps you adapt it to your own brand, which is a $97 value. The About page formula at $197 value, and the Create Your Mindset bonus, which is a $297 value. Beyond this, and these are actual numbers, I've invested over $12,000 of my own money to develop this course. My team has spent, between all of us, over 600 hours in developing all of this content. And that's on top of the 3 years of collecting data, obsessively researching, and learning about the archetypes. And then I've distilled it down into this powerful package for you to adapt it to your own brand. So I know I easily could sell this for the full value, which I calculate at just over $1,000. Now, I know this might not seem as impressive as some other course values you see, but I am way too much of a sage archetype. It's my secondary archetype to inflate the value of my course to like $20,000. So I know I could easily sell this course for $1,000, and I probably should, because it has been so much work to put it together, and I know it's going to have an immense value on your business. It's the thing, like I said, that affects everything else. It makes everything else easier. It makes everything else more effective. It just adds a sense of flow, certainty, and confidence to your brand. But I'm not going to sell it for $1,000. I'm going to sell it for $297. This is a strategic decision, and this is me being brutally honest. Like I said, I feel like I could have charged a lot more than this, But it's strategic because I made the decision that I wanted to be able to introduce people to my work. I wanted people to benefit from the power of archetypes because I know firsthand how powerful it can be and the massive changes that it can influence in your business. And I know that if you buy this course for this relatively affordable price and you see those really, really big changes when you implement, that you're going to want to work with me down the road. So this is my investment in you. It's my investment in your brand. I'm keeping this at a low enough price that it's accessible to people who are in the more beginning stages of your business because I know the results that you can get from it. And because I'm an entrepreneur and I understand how thoughtful you are when you're making decisions about investments in your business, I am making sure that there's no risk for you to invest. I think we've established that investing in your brand is a very valuable decision. But if you're just now meeting me and you are unsure, let me reduce any second thoughts. So if you buy the course and you don't love it, just let me know within the first week after you try out some of the material, and I will return your investment to you. It's how I'd like to be treated, so it's how I treat you. Now, this is amazing. I worked with Sean on a full brand transformation because like I said, this course is absolutely brand new. So the testimonials that I have are people who've worked with me on a one-on-one basis in the past. I asked them to reflect on how knowing their archetype and how leveraging their archetype affected their business. So Sean said, working with Kay unleashed the confidence I needed to be more active online. She empowered my brand by unlocking the power of my hero and explorer archetype. Her strategically creative systems equipped me with the courage to put myself out there, and not just out there, but out there with certainty and conviction, and people buy certainty. In my first year as a coach, coming from a completely different field, I earned a net 6-figure income. Kay's work transforming my brand gave me the confidence to pursue my true path and to help others do the same. Sean is amazing, and I appreciate that. Deborah was in one of my group courses, and she also had a massive epiphany moment when she worked through the archetypes. So she said, I have to tell you, I'm having this incredible epiphany. It's like my whole life story is falling into place. It's a multi-generational story, and it suddenly makes so much sense, and it's central to who I am. I'm a 58-year-old, and suddenly my whole life is making sense to me. I'm a professional counselor of 30 years, and I've been wandering around, lost in a desert, not having any clue about my core message until now. Life-changing, amazing stuff going on here. I love you, Deborah. So Susanna Scully is amazing. She's a podcast host. Her podcast is called The Cosmos and You. I highly recommend it. And she's also a TEDx speaker, so be sure and check her out there. Her talk is called The Road Less Traveled, and it's amazing. So she said, discovering my brand archetype was like having a huge weight lifted off of my shoulders. Finally, I had a framework through which I could think about my brand, which enabled me to communicate more effectively and ultimately better serve my audience. And also being able to leverage Kay's expertise around branding was a true gift, as I felt I had a true expert on my side. I'm blushing over here. You can't see me, but I'm blushing. I also worked with Jeff Riddle, who is also amazing. A new papa to a amazing newborn baby. He said, when I partnered with Kay to transform my brand, I was very clear that my deep connection with my clients is the most important element to both myself and my brand. I didn't want anything gimmicky or surface level. It needed to be truly meaningful. Using my blend of the magician and caregiver archetype, Kay helped define my brand to reflect exactly that. The work she completed for me truly represents who I am at a deep level. Kay is extremely talented, and I'm so grateful for her insights. Again, smiling and blushing, and just happy that I've been able to share this methodology, share this tool and framework with more people, because it really does have a profound impact on people's business, both in the way that you feel about it and the way that other people perceive you. So to close, I'm going to ask you, Morpheus style, if you've ever watched The Matrix, are you going to take the red pill or are you going to take the blue pill? Are you going to continue attempting to figure this out on your own, like walking through the dark? Or can I help you through it? Can I show you everything that I've learned in the last 3 years that I've put together with literally over 600 hours of preparation to make sure that this is the most amazing archetype training that you have ever experienced? Has more detail, more depth, more insights, more swipeable content that you can use in your own brand than I have ever seen anywhere. And I created it because I needed it for myself, and I created it because I knew how much of an impact it would have for you. So I would love, absolutely love, if you join me on this journey, if you invest in yourself, if you choose your future and invest in your brand. Thanks so much for watching. Can't wait to see you on the other side. Just click the yellow button and I'll get you started right away.